Turn your notifications off. Close every other tab. And lock in on this one, because what just walked out of a locked conference room inside Universal Music Group in the last 48 hours is not a whisper, is not a hunch, is not another gossip account fishing for engagement with a fake screenshot. This is a paper trail. Signed, stamped, dated, notarized, sitting on a docket. And that paper trail proves, in black ink on white paper, that Kendrick Lamar did not just win a rap beef against Drake. He walked straight into the record label Drake helped raise from a Canadian side bet into a global monster, pulled out the chair at the head of the boardroom, sat down, and calmly took the throne Drake spent 15 years assuming had his name carved into it. Let that sentence sit on your chest for a moment, because by the time we walk this thing beat by beat, you will look at this situation the exact way the senior executives inside UMG are looking at it right now behind closed doors. Drake did not get out-rapped. Drake got outmaneuvered. Not on wax. Not on radio. Not on billboard. On paperwork. On corporate structure. On the one battlefield where Drake was raised to believe he was untouchable. And the wildest part of everything we are about to walk through is that the same machine that turned Drake into a household brand is now the same machine drafting the memos that write him out of the future of hip-hop. Kendrick Lamar is the one holding the pen right now. So if you have ever wanted to see the exact second a rap feud stopped being about bars and became a full corporate takeover, sit down and get comfortable, because this is that second. Real quick, before we go any deeper, if you can already feel the air changing in the room, if you can already sense that this story is way bigger than a diss track feud, do me one favor. Tap the like button, subscribe if you are brand new around here, and share this out. Because this thing is only the tip of a much larger iceberg, and there is a second wave of documents already floating through industry group chats that people in my inbox are describing as career-ending for Drake, if even half of it is verified. So make sure you are locked in with notifications on, because the moment that second stack of files lands with real sources, we're back on this channel breaking every page of it down. Now let us build the timeline together piece by piece, because to appreciate the scale of what Kendrick Lamar just pulled off inside this corporation, you need to sit with the receipts and let the paperwork do the talking, one exhibit at a time. Rewind the tape to October of 2025. Drake officially filed suit against Universal Music Group. His own label. His own paycheck. The corporate parent that had run promotion for every single one of his albums since the mixtape era. And what was the suit about? A Kendrick Lamar record titled Not Like Us. Drake argued in court that the record painted him as a predator, that UMG had juiced the streaming numbers behind the scenes to weaponize the track against him, and that the very corporation he helped elevate had turned into a loaded firearm aimed at his own chest. Federal Judge Jeanette Vargas sat through every argument Drake's counsel could pile onto the docket. She reviewed the exhibits, the declarations, the internal metadata Drake's team submitted. And then she dismissed the whole thing. Wiped. The Not Like Us record, in the eyes of the federal court, was protected artistic expression. Drake was left standing there holding a legal folder with no floor beneath it. So Drake did what Drake always does when the story turns on him. He appealed. In January of 2026, his legal team filed a fresh brief arguing that the lower court had invented an untouchable free speech shield around diss records, and now, in July of 2026, that appeal is unraveling in real time because a batch of internal UMG documents has just leaked, and those documents tell a story Drake burned every dollar in his war chest to keep buried. The Compton rapper was not simply being defended by UMG during the beef. Kendrick Lamar was being quietly groomed as the future centerpiece of the entire label, while Drake, in the same private meetings, was being slowly drawn out of the frame. And here is the part where the whole thing detonates. The leaked UMG paperwork, and we are walking this line by line, exposes 3 moves that Drake's lawyers are currently scrambling to shove back into a sealed folder before an appellate judge lays eyes on them. Move number 1. The royalty rate on Not Like Us was revised upward for Kendrick Lamar after Drake filed the lawsuit. Read that one more time. Drake dragged UMG into a federal courtroom claiming his rival was being propped up above him unfairly, and UMG's response was to hand him a larger slice of the exact record Drake was suing over. That is not a shrug. That is not a coincidence. That is a corporate answer key. That is UMG writing a note to the entire music industry in the middle of active litigation, telling every artist on the roster which horse the parent company is riding. Move number 2. The internal budget worksheets confirm that UMG's West Coast division, the same division that houses the PG Lang imprint, was allocated a marketing spend 3 times larger than the OVO Sound division for the 2026 fiscal year. 3 times larger. Drake, the same Drake who carried this label through the collapse of the CD, through the birth of streaming, through the entire Spotify era, is now receiving 1/3 of the promotional muscle of the artist he is trying to sue. If that is not a signed message from the executive floor, I genuinely do not know what a signed message from an executive floor is supposed to look like anymore. Move number 3, and this is the guillotine. A leaked internal memo, stamped confidential, stamped distribution restricted, shows senior UMG executives quietly meeting with Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free to expand PG Lang from a boutique creative company into a full-service label imprint operating directly under the UMG umbrella. Translation for the fans in the back. The PG Lang founder is about to own his masters, control his own distribution pipeline, sign his own artists, and run his own label vertical, all while sitting inside the exact corporate structure Drake spent a small fortune trying to sue his way out of. Drake tried to blow the exit doors off UMG. His rival just walked in the front entrance and started measuring the drapes. You have to understand how rare a memo like that actually is inside a major label. Imprint expansions do not just fall out of the sky. Imprint deals get negotiated over months, sometimes years, with legal, audit, and financial forecasting teams running long-term revenue projections on how much profit the artist is expected to funnel back into the parent corporation. The fact that the memo even exists means UMG's internal revenue forecast on Kendrick Lamar has to be astronomical. The fact that the memo leaked means somebody inside that building wanted the industry to know. Somebody inside that building wanted every rival label, every agent, every artist on the fence, and yes, every Drake supporter with a comment section to work, to see the direction the compass is pointing. Now stack those 3 moves on top of each other, and look at the shape they make. A royalty bump on the exact song Drake filed a lawsuit over. A marketing budget 3 times the size of Drake's own imprint. An imprint expansion memo handing Drake's rival the master keys to a full label vertical inside the parent company. That is not 3 separate business decisions. That is not 3 unrelated department heads making unrelated calls. That is a coordinated pivot. That is the entire senior leadership of Universal Music Group choosing, in writing, in the middle of a lawsuit, a favorite. And the favorite is not the guy with the owl chain around his neck. The favorite is the guy in the black PG Lang hoodie. This is why the boardroom conversation flipped overnight. Because for the entire 2026 calendar, Drake's post-beef survival plan has been to bury the Not Like Us conversation under an avalanche of noise. When Drake rolled out Iceman in May, alongside Habibti and Maid of Honor, 3 albums stacked on top of each other in a single release day, the entire industry read the play instantly. Drake was banking on volume. Drake was trying to drown out the loudest chorus in modern hip-hop history under a mountain of 40-plus tracks. And for about 6 weeks, credit where credit is due, the play flickered. Iceman had shots taken at Kendrick Lamar, at DJ Khaled, at Dr. Dre, at Half the Culture, at anybody standing within a 2-mile radius of a live microphone. Drake wanted the narrative to be simple and Drake-shaped. Drake is back. Drake is unbothered. Drake is running the year. But here is the punchline nobody in Drake's camp saw coming. While Drake was writing bars to prove he still mattered, Kendrick Lamar was writing contracts to prove he owned the building. Kendrick Lamar did not respond to Iceman on Wax. He did not fire off a subtweet. He did not sit for a single interview. He walked into UMG conference rooms and started drawing property lines on the corporate map. And now, 6 weeks later, we finally know exactly what Kendrick Lamar was doing inside that silence. Drake was rapping. Kendrick Lamar was negotiating. Drake was suing. Kendrick Lamar was signing. Drake was on stage yelling into an arena mic that UMG had conspired against him. Kendrick Lamar was in the room, becoming the single most valuable West Coast asset the label has attached to its future in a generation. That is not the score at the end of a beef. That is the type of maneuver Jay-Z used to pull inside boardrooms while everybody else was busy chasing spins. That is a chess move 10 squares deep. That is the kind of business execution that turns a rapper into an institution. And he just executed it while Drake was still hollering into a studio microphone about how everyone in the room was against him. If you needed one final confirmation that the industry has already cast its vote, take a look at what happened at the BET Awards this year. Kendrick Lamar walked home with Best Male Hip-Hop Artist. Again. Over Drake. Over J. Cole. Over A$AP Rocky. Over Baby Keem. Over Big X The Plug. Over DaBaby. Over Don Toliver. Every heavyweight on the ballot. Every rapper who could have theoretically blocked him from the crown. And he took it for the second year in a row, uncontested. Drake supporters instantly flooded their timelines screaming the same tired talking points. He was robbed. The vote was rigged. BET has an axe to grind. But receipts do not care about feelings. The Compton King is now the all-time leader across the combined BET Awards and BET Hip Hop Awards. And that is not a one-night anomaly you can wave away. That is a career-long pattern. The industry has been trying to tell Drake, quietly and politely for years, that his rival is the artist and Drake is the entertainer. And when the internal vote tallies from the BET voting body surfaced this week, we finally got to see the margin. Kendrick Lamar did not squeak past anyone. Kendrick Lamar took the room by a landslide. Insiders inside Drake's own management sitting on the voting body could not push their guy over the top. He did not just walk away with a trophy. Kendrick Lamar took the room, the label, and the culture in the same breath. And Drake is left holding 3 albums nobody at brunch is talking about, an appeal that legal analysts are already writing obituaries for, and a legacy his own legal team cannot defend in front of a judge without their voice cracking. Now I need to pull Dave Free into the frame, because you cannot tell this story honestly without saying his name out loud. Dave Free is the co-founder of PG Lang. Dave Free is the former president of Top Dog Entertainment. Dave Free is the architect behind every calculated move Kendrick Lamar has made since 2020. Dave Free is the reason his artist exited TD without a scratch on his reputation. Dave Free is the reason PG Lang exists as a freestanding creative company instead of another sub-brand sitting under a major label's org chart. Dave Free is the reason his partner owns his masters, his publishing splits, his tour rights, his visual rights, his film rights, and every angle of the empire that most rappers sign away before they even fully understand the word royalty. And Dave Free confirmed on Instagram last week that the 7th studio album is finished. Not close. Not almost. Done. Sealed. Mastered. Loaded. And here is where it wires directly into the leaked UMG paperwork we just walked through. Sources inside PG Lang confirm the album will be distributed through the newly upgraded PG Lang imprint under the UMG umbrella, meaning the Compton rapper is going to take home a bigger cut of the earnings on this record than Drake has ever cleared on a single album in his entire career. That is not just a business win. That is a cultural fault line splitting hip-hop into a before and after. Because for years, the argument in every barbershop, every podcast, every corner of the timeline was the same. Drake is the smarter businessman. Drake understands the money. Drake is building an empire while his rival is off in the studio making art nobody can put on the radio. That entire argument just got buried in the same conference room where the memo leaked from. Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free just assembled the most powerful independent/major hybrid the genre has ever seen. And Drake is standing on the other side of the parking lot with 3 underperforming albums under his arm and an appeal his own team is bracing to lose. Here is the piece nobody in the mainstream press has the nerve to touch. Drake is reportedly trying to walk out of UMG quietly. And Drake is trying to walk out with 43 unreleased songs still sitting on hard drives inside the OVO camp. Sources close to OVO Sound have been leaking this quietly for weeks. Drake is hunting for a new distribution partner. Drake is fed up with the label he helped build. Drake wants his full control back. And on the surface, that reads like a Drake power move. That reads like ownership. That reads like Jay-Z on his way to Rock Nation. But sit with it for a real second. If Drake actually walks out of UMG, Drake walks away from the exact marketing machine that turned Drake into Drake. Drake loses the promotional muscle that pushed Certified Lover Boy over the billion-stream line. Drake loses the corporate relationships that fed him every advantage in his beefs with Meek Mill, with Pusha T, and every rapper who ever tried to raise a hand at him in the last 10 years. And who fills the top slot in UMG's hip-hop priority stack the second Drake exits the front door? Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar walks in. He sits down. He starts giving notes. So while Drake is walking away from the empire he helped raise, Kendrick Lamar is walking in to inherit it, to redecorate it, to rewrite the mission statement across the front of the building. This is the corporate version of the exact line the Compton King buried Drake with on Not Like Us. They not like us. Drake is now the outsider. Drake is now the pushed out one. Drake is now the guy sitting on 43 unreleased tracks nobody at the label wants to promote, because the 7th album from PG Lang is scheduled on the same platform, on the same distribution pipeline. And the executives who used to hop on Drake's calls now have Dave free on speed dial. Drake did not just lose a rap beef. Drake lost his home base, and his rival did not have to spit a single bar to make it happen. Not one. Let me pull the camera back for a second, because you have to understand how rare an ending like this actually is inside hip-hop history. Rap beefs come. Rap beefs go. Jay-Z and Nas traded shots for years, and eventually Nas landed on Def Jam. 50 Cent buried Ja Rule, and yet neither of them ever walked into the other man's boardroom. Pusha T ended Drake in 2018 and never came close to redirecting a marketing budget. Meek Mill and Drake had a moment that burned out like a match in the rain. Every generation gets its defining beef, and almost every single one of those beefs eventually fizzles down to a fun footnote. Somebody drops a mediocre response, somebody moves on, the fans lose interest, everybody eats. But Kendrick Lamar refused to let this one fizzle. Kendrick Lamar took this beef, and he shaped it, and he weaponized it into a career-defining, industry-shifting, culture-realigning event that is going to sit inside hip-hop textbooks for the next 50 years. Kendrick Lamar drove Not Like Us to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. He performed it on the Super Bowl 61 halftime stage in front of 130 million pairs of eyes. He cleared 5 Grammys off that single record, including Record of the Year for Luther with SZA at the 2026 ceremony. Kendrick Lamar walked away with Best Male Hip-Hop Artist at back-to-back BET Awards. And now Kendrick Lamar is set to headline Coachella 2026, according to reporting circulating out of Hits Daily Double. Drake, inside that same window, has been filing lawsuits, losing lawsuits, dropping 3 albums the culture has already forgotten, and watching his own label pick his rival over him in the official paperwork. That is not a rap beef. That is a coronation. That is a West Coast crown being welded onto a Compton King's head while Drake sits in a Toronto hotel room scrolling comments, trying to find one supporter who still means it when they type it. Kendrick Lamar did not just win. He cemented himself as the greatest rapper of his generation, and now the corporate filing cabinets just stamped the certification. So what happens next? Where does Kendrick Lamar aim his fire after this, and what does Drake even have left in the toolbox to work with? For the PG Lang camp, the roadmap is clean. The 7th Kendrick Lamar album drops before the year closes out. PG Lang expands into film, into television, into fashion, all filed under an umbrella structure that keeps ownership sitting with him and Dave free. New artists on the PG Lang roster get their runway inside the machine. He and Dave Free continue building the empire that this industry once quietly whispered they were not smart enough to run. And the Coachella headline slot is not going to be pitched as a festival booking. It is going to be pitched as a victory lap on a beef the PG Lang founder already closed the book on 18 months ago. For Drake, the map gets uglier every time you unfold it. The appeal on the Not Like Us lawsuit is expected to hit in the coming months, and legal analysts across every podcast circuit are already writing the loss column into their notes. If Drake bails on UMG, he becomes an independent artist for the first time in his career, and this industry has literally never figured out how to promote an independent Drake because there has never been one. If Drake stays inside UMG, he becomes priority number 2 behind his rival, which is a humiliation Drake's ego cannot survive intact. And if Drake tries to fire back musically, Drake risks another Meet the Graham-style shockwave, which almost dead-ended his career on the first pass and would very likely finish the job on the second. Drake is boxed inside a corner Drake engineered with his own hands, and the Compton King is the architect who quietly walled him in without ever raising his voice above a whisper. And listen, whether you ride for Drake or you ride for the Compton King, you have to give the game its respect right here, because what the Compton King executed is now the blueprint for every rapper trying to climb the ladder for the next 20 years. He did not win because he raps harder, although the record shows he does. He did not win because he releases more, although his rollouts get written up like feature films. Kendrick Lamar won because he understood the deepest secret nobody in the modern rap game wants to admit out loud. This is a business. This is a corporation. And corporations are won with paperwork, with ownership stakes, with long-term positioning, and with a partner in Dave Free who saw the chessboard 3 moves before anybody else in the industry knew a game had even been started. He and Dave Free built pglang at a moment when Kendrick Lamar was already an established multimillionaire, but they built it like they were still broke and still hungry. They negotiated harder deals. They kept the masters. They constructed a team of loyalists. They played the long game while everyone else chased the calendar. Drake played the short game. Drake chased hits. Drake chased trend cycles. Drake chased radio ads. Drake chased streaming stunts. And now, in 2026, the Compton King owns the future. While Drake owns 3 albums, the algorithm has already begun deprioritizing on the front page. This is why Kendrick Lamar is the greatest rapper of his generation. Not because he rhymes better, though he clearly does. Not because he sells more, though he now does that as well. But because he treated hip-hop like the corporation it was always destined to become, and he became the chief executive of it while Drake was busy being the marketing mascot on the poster. One more thing I have to leave you with before we head into the outro, because it matters more than any single leaked document I just read to you. There is a phrase that keeps circulating inside pglang's inner circle right now, and it has already been echoed back to me by 2 separate sources who have zero connection to each other. The phrase is, quote, "We are building a legacy label," unquote. Legacy label. Not a boutique. Not a vanity imprint. Not a hobby project. A legacy label. That is the exact language that used to describe Def Jam under Russell Simmons in the 80s. That is the exact language that used to describe Death Row in the mid-90s. That is the exact language that used to describe Rockefeller before Jay-Z pivoted it into Rock Nation under Universal. Legacy labels are not built by rappers who lose beefs and then file federal appeals. Legacy labels are built by architects who understand 3 things at once. Music is a product. Ownership is a weapon. And time is the only true asset. Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free understand all 3 of them. Drake, judging by his last 12 months of documented decisions, understands 0 of them. That is the real gap between these 2 artists in 2026. Not a gap on the microphone. A gap in worldview. So there it is. That is the full breakdown, laid out for you the way UMG's own executive team is laying it out on their whiteboards right now. Kendrick Lamar just hijacked Drake's own record label from the inside. The leaked UMG paperwork proves it in black and white. The BET Awards confirmed it in trophies. The dismissed federal lawsuits sealed the legal side. The incoming 7th album is going to drive the final nail into a beef Drake started and his rival finished in ways Drake could not have imagined even at the peak of his paranoia. This is the biggest power shift in hip-hop since Jay-Z built Rock Nation, and you just saw the anatomy of it laid out here first, page by page. If this breakdown landed for you, if you learned something you did not walk in with, if you can feel the size of this moment settling in, do me one favor. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for daily Kendrick Lamar and Drake coverage, and drop a comment below telling me what you think the Compton King's next move is going to be. Is the 7th album really dropping in October? Is Coachella officially locked in as the victory lap? Is Drake genuinely about to walk out of UMG carrying 43 homeless songs on a hard drive? Sound off down there. I read every single comment, and the best ones this week are getting pinned to the top. And I will catch you in the next breakdown, because we are about to go even deeper into the PG Lang empire, into the Dave Free playbook, and into how the Compton King is quietly rewiring the entire circuit board of hip-hop from inside the exact corporate skyscraper Drake used to think he owned the keys to. Until then, peace.